Monica Cruz. I am a junior at the University of Northern Iowa, and I am in a social change class. And for our project, we are interviewing students of color and international students on the campus of UNI and their experience at the University of Northern Iowa. So what is your name?
My name is Diego Alejandro Saavedra Rojas, but you can call me Diego.
And what's your major at UNI?
I am actually a grad student, so I am a civil industrial engineer, and here I'm studying the Master in Science and Technology.
Nice. And tell us a little bit about yourself, where you come from.
I am from Chile. My hometown is Arica, which is a city located in the north part of the country, in the border with Peru and Bolivia. So back there I just studied civil industrial engineering 6 years. I worked 3 years more, and then I quit my job and came here studying the master's.
And how did you hear about the University of Northern Iowa, and why did you decide to go to school here?
So I always wanted to study abroad, especially my master's, especially here too, in the United States in general. But we met a lot of students from UNI because they were going to study abroad there in my university. They have a program when you could travel through the north of my country and also going to, for example, Machu Picchu, Arequipa, which is in Peru. So we met a lot of UNI students there, especially from the TESOL program. And one of those students met one of my friends, and they get married, and they were living here. So
Yeah.
I said, hey, why don't I come to see you and also study?
Yeah.
So,
And how has your experience been on campus? Has it been mostly positive, negative, and how has that made you feel?
obviously, the overall experience is amazing. I mean, it's positive. The campus is really nice. It's similar to my city. My city is also like quiet, a small town.
Mhm.
The people is very nice. The
Yeah.
weather, well, the weather is an issue for everyone.
Yeah.
But in my city, the weather is totally different.
Mhm.
It's like summer all the time.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And are you in any extracurricular activities?
yes, right now I am participating on the UNI Global Business Club. I'm an engineer, but I have like a little background in businesses. So
Oh,
it's
perfect.
kind of the same in my country.
Yeah.
So we met with those students that they are interested in just different cultures, chat about different stuff. They are very interested in traveling, and since I am a grad student, I cannot participate that much. For example, in the competences or
Mhm.
case studies that they have, I just they're hanging around and supporting them, advising them, stuff like that.
Nice. And then how well are you transitioning to the American culture?
Yeah, I've been here since December the 27th, 2017, so it's
Okay.
been more than 1 year, 1 and 2 years, and I'm good. I think, I'm really old, mature, so I am really independent, so I don't miss a lot of my family. I think the Chilean culture is like very similar to this culture,
Mhm.
but however the Latino culture, which is like more warming, more touchy feeling with others. For example, we hug a lot of people.
Mhm.
But here you cannot do that.
Yeah.
So also the family, like your family is the most important thing in your
Mhm.
life, and you have to see them, I don't know, at least once a day or twice a week, 3
Mhm.
times a week.
Yeah.
It's very important for us. And here sometimes, it's quite difficult.
Yeah. And then what are some positive or negative things you've noticed on campus surrounding international students, whether that were to happen to you personally or like through observations of friends or other international students?
So I would say that one big issue, in general for international students here is the individualism
Mm-hmm.
of domestic students. Sometimes they are like really individualistic, so they don't share a lot of things. So I think that sometimes that is like a big culture shock that you will expect more from them, but it's not because they are mad at you. It's because just they are like that
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah.
And also maybe what happened to me that sometimes people they don't say hi or they don't say nothing. They just I don't know sit next to you,
Yeah.
and that for us is like really weird. And sometimes it's like, what am I doing wrong? I mean, something. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's complicated.
Yeah. Do you feel welcomed on campus or part of a community?
Yes, like I said, sometimes. I mean, I have seen that international students they just hang out together really nice. I mean, but sometimes with domestic students, especially people that live in another towns, which is like I don't know, like farming towns, they don't have a lot of international students, so
Yep.
it's kind of new for them. So they don't know how to react, or I think it's just a difference that they don't are used to. So,
And what type of advice would you give to domestic students on campus to be more welcoming or like communicate a little bit better to international students?
yeah, sometimes we struggle with the language,
Yeah.
maybe. So we also sometimes we need like support or advice in that. I mean, we don't need professors, but it's like
Yeah.
I don't know, we want to learn like the slangs that you use here. Sometimes we don't get that
Yeah.
stuff like that. And I will say that everyone has like a responsibility of informing about your culture, informing about your country, because no one knows your country. I mean, it's not your responsibility, but also you have to understand that people doesn't know about. Well, I will say that sometimes you don't have to know that, but it's like your responsibility to teach people around from your culture,
Yeah.
and they don't have to like it. They don't have to feel passionate about it, but they will respect you, and that's important.
So would you change your experience on the campus of UNI at all?
I will say that every day for me is a learning experience.
Yeah.
So no, I won't change it. Maybe because also here is, like I said, it's very similar to my city. So I think I feel at home sometimes.
Yeah.
And I don't know, maybe in another city it's going to be more complicated. I will say that I did a really nice choice. But I don't know, maybe if I will study something different to my master right now, maybe I will think about it.
And have you felt any type of discrimination on campus because of your identity or at work at all?
Yeah, maybe sometimes, like I said, the way that people treat you differently, you can tell when they do it differently because of you are just international student, you are not from here, or your accent is different. I think one of the things that is like sometimes I don't understand is like we do a lot of generalizations. So people when see me they could think that I don't know, I'm Mexican, but
Yeah.
I'm not Mexican.
Yeah.
And also I am American. I am American, but I'm Southern American.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's different, and we're totally different from the North American culture. It's, like I said, we're more like welcoming, we're more warming. We really love to like hug people, kiss people. So
Yeah.
that's it.
Do you feel like you have a voice or your voice is heard on campus?
I will not say that we are minorities because we had a lot of international students, and maybe like 100, more than 100, I think we are. And I think the system here works really well for us. So I know that if I have something to say, I could say it. I know who to ask for that,
Yeah.
who to ask for advice. Yeah, but sometimes I think that depending on your personality, some people don't know what to do. But I mean, it's just asking or find the real environment to do it.
Yeah. Do you have any advice for other international students interested in coming to UNI?
Yeah, like I said, it's maybe do a little bit of research
Yep.
about the cultures that they have in here, and try to like get involved in any kind of activities that they have here, because it's a lot. It's
Yeah.
a lot, and it's really interesting. And maybe, like I said, some research about the rural world in here, or what is surrounding here, how is the culture in here.
Okay. What has your favorite part been here at UNI?
I will say that I really love the WRC.
Yeah.
We don't have that in at least in my city.
Mm-hmm.
The winter, I love it a little bit. I have never been in snow before.
Oh,
since I came
yeah.
here.
Do you like the snow?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't like the snow.
But when it's too much and more than 3 months,
Yep.
it's too much. Obviously, summer times and the network that we have in here. For example, if you want to go, you can grab your bike and go to the lake or rivers or around the parks and trails. That is amazing.
Yeah. And then do you have anything else to say to the public, other students, faculty, or anything at all?
I have seen a lot of nice experience and feedback from people from other countries, from professors. They provide a lot of support, and that's nice. It's one of the things that I really appreciate that. But yeah, like I said, sometimes I will say in the class setting, some domestic students, they behave weird.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that maybe it depends on the professor. Some professors, they could handle it in a really nice way, but some maybe don't know what to do.
Yeah.
So I think that's it, like focusing on the environment of the class or the experience that you're going to provide, that everyone could participate equally, stuff like that.
And I feel like that's great feedback for both students and professors to acknowledge that and maybe be more open-minded. And I know lots of people, even like in my classes, I sit down and nobody says a word to each other. And so it's like maybe just changing that environment like as a whole too. So, well, thank you for letting me interview you.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Hi Nader, thank you so much for being here today. First, let's just try and introduce yourself to whoever is listening to us today. Tell us more about you, who you are, and everything.
Well, thank you so much, Lamis, for having me. I think I will introduce myself. My name is Nader Khan, and I am an international student from Pakistan, majoring in public health and nonprofit professional. This is my last semester, graduating in 31 days.
Wow.
Yeah.
That must be exciting.
Yeah, it's mixed feeling.
I would love to know more about you before arriving at UNI.
Sure, yeah.
When did you arrive exactly?
So, I know the exact date of it. It is 8th of August, 2015.
That's 4 years ago.
Yep.
Okay, can you tell us more about you before 2015? Your life in Pakistan. What did you study? What did you do? How was your social life, your personality?
You know what, Lamis? I was a kid at that time. So, back in Pakistan, I did my O and A levels from an international school. It was a very nice private school, and the students over there were spoiled, but I was one of those students who question everything, who observes everything, and always try to interrupt things. Sometimes my professors or my counselor, they like me, but they say, no, I don't know, you need to figure it out what you want to do in your life. So I was kind of a I was kind of a student who was more curious about things. And I'm not gonna say I was a very smart student. I was okay. My social life was pretty good. It was pretty much like the same here. I have very good friends there, still there. I still talk to them. They're doing great in their lives right now. Some are gonna be doctors, some are gonna be engineers, and some are gonna be socialists.
Okay, thank you for sharing this.
Yeah.
And my next question is, actually you ruined it by saying that it's pretty much the same as here, because my next question was supposed to be what impact did you and I have on you?
Yeah, well, that's a different impact then, because friendship, I believe it's more on you, that how you show your personality to others, so you
True.
will make your friends.
True.
You and I has a great impact on myself. Um, I was a student back in Pakistan, but didn't know nothing about how a world works, or how people change their life, or how people have impacts on others' life, or how even other people of culture, color, they're different from each other. You and I helped me explore that. So you and I has a big impact on my leadership. You and I helped me to
Abilities.
become a leader.
True.
Uh,
Oh, by the way, you won something last week. What was
Yes,
it?
it was actually, I think I'm gonna brag here. We got 3 different awards. 2 of them for my organization, Muslim Student Association.
Nice.
Program of the year, we did a interfaith dialogue. It's a very diverse event. And then I got a Diversity Matter Awards.
Nice. The Diversity Matters Award.
Yes.
This title says everything about you.
Yeah, it was cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are some of the extracurricular activities that you were or are still engaged in on campus? Besides school, what else do you do?
On campus from my freshman year, I'm not gonna take because it's a long list, but just like popping
Yeah,
up the main
yeah.
ones. One is Northern Iowa Student Government. I was involved with them as their Director of International Affairs. Then I am working with alumni, so connecting students to alumni. That's an organization I'm involved with. MSA, the most close to my heart, Muslim Student Association, and 2 other one is Non-Profit Leadership Alliance and International Student Promoters. So it's a very diverse
Wow.
group of organization on campus I
Yeah.
was involved in.
Yeah. And when you decide to engage in such organizations, what is the main purpose of your engagement? Is it that you want to benefit to your benefit to be on a personal level, or do you want to make a collective change? Do you aim when joining these organizations? Do you aim at making a personal impact on yourself, or on a social to make a social impact?
One, I'm gonna divide it into 2.
Okay.
Number 1 is to tell Cedar Falls, University of Northern Iowa, that who I am, what my identity is,
True.
and what my perspective is.
True.
Showing them another picture of diversity.
True.
Second, for myself, was learning from them, knowing their culture, knowing how they do work, and get more exposure.
So you're saying you're aiming at both.
That was both of my aims. One for myself, one for them. So it was like give and take thing.
Give and take.
Yes.
But a group I'm seeing is missing from your answer right now is the other minority groups. You just spoke of yourself as a Pakistani, and you spoke about Iowans, Cedar Fall people. Okay.
Okay, I think I will make it very clear here. When I say Cedar Falls, Iowa,
Okay.
University of Northern Iowa,
You mean all the people?
it comes
inside.
everything there.
Yeah.
Like I'm not specifically saying, oh, I was involved in NISG, that's why I want to tell them, because in NISG there are diverse people too. But that's why I just say clearly University of Northern Iowa, because
Yeah.
this whole name bring all the people of color, identity, sexuality comes under that.
So, in a sense, do you aim at including more people and bringing more people together, not necessarily just Iowans, not necessarily just Pakistanis? You're aiming at including everyone.
You know what, Lamise? I have friends from, I don't know. Here, when I come to UNI, I think I made friends from all over the world,
Nice.
whether they are from any nation.
Yeah.
So that was one of my success, was that people not know me from.
So, what do you do for international students, for example?
Okay.
Because you are an international student. What are some of the things that you try to do to bring those, let's not say marginalized, but say shy people who are not willing to engage? who see themselves are as outsiders. Do you have any, like, did you do anything to include them in these organizations?
Thank you so much, Lamis, for this question, because I was gonna elaborate this question when I talked about my organization, but I said no, just cut time there. But okay, so as I just mentioned before, I was involved with Northern Iowa Student Government as their Director of International Affairs. That job was typically for to advocate and lobby for international students. That was only that job. Students who are not involved on campus, but I'm talking about internationals right now.
Yes.
The students who are not involved or try to look for that where they belong to, I make sure I advocate for them. When I got that position at that time, there were a lot of international students. They don't know about anything on campus. Like, well, there were people who know about it, but they're the people who need more attention. They need more exposure to the campus organization. So I was the person who was advocating them in different committees. I created a whole report, and the report was not my own thing. It was, I interviewed international students, what they think about it, where they want to be involved in it, and are they feeling isolation? What about their isolation? Like where they want to be involved and how they want to be recognized. So it was a lot, like 2 years of process, and then we come up with a different solution for that report. One was that we needed to bridge gaps between the organizations.
Yeah.
And now you will see that I'm just going to give a very small example here. There are broad examples. MSA is bridging gaps with CATS, connecting student with alumni, bridging gaps with CME, Center for Multicultural Education. So these are, we bridge gaps between them, and we make sure students go from one place to another. So that is what my job was. When I joined, I just want to say this, saying when I joined NISC, I was the only international student there, and now an international student even run for the election for NISC. Yeah. So I feel like it's not impacted on my life, but it really impacted on other international students.
Yeah, nice.
I hope
nice.
This answers the question.
So something just popped out. For international students, do you think that they have to join these organizations in order to be acknowledged as students? Are there any things that you're doing, like, for example, a grad student who does not have time to engage in such organizations, are there any ways to just include them without asking them to be members?
So this is a very, very critical question, and sometimes even I think about that. That do you really want to be involved to tell you who you are?
Thank you for
This is a very, very observatory question. Sometimes I question myself about it. Well, if you will ask me my perspectives, I will say it totally depends on the individual. If you are a person who cannot sit down just by seeing what's going on and just keep quiet, then I think you should be involved, bring your perspective into different organizations and tell them who you are. But if you are a person who just came with a goal that you're going to study and then you're going to leave and, I don't care what's going on, then I think that's even fine too. I will not say that person is wrong, because that person has another goals.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's more over the goals. As you just talk about master students, they are already busy in their life. I feel like that they don't have, I'm not going to use the word responsibility here, they're already doing so much in their own
academic
major. Undergrad people are deciding what they want to do in their life, and these organizations help them decide what they want to do. True. That's what my perspective is. I'm not going to quote anyone else, I'm just quoting myself. So masters are already doing, but if they want to be involved, why not? If they think this is important for themselves. If they're not, that's okay too. Like it's not something they have to do it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Now another personal question. How did people's perception about you change over time? Did your social involvement help in making you more accepted amongst UNI large community? As if you just reflect upon your first let's say 6 months at UNI, and then you started engaging in organizations, did people's perception, the way they saw you, change over time?
I will say yes, Lamis. It changes a lot, and there is so many reasons attached to it. One is that yes, people, because I want people to know me, not by promoting myself. Oh, I'm giving this speech or no, just knowing them. Okay, I'm doing this work. And you're a human being. You want to be acknowledged sometimes, and I was one of them too. I want to be acknowledged at some time. I think yes, people change their perception about me. They feel like that, oh yeah, he's involved, he's a leader, he can help us with this. So there are so many reasons. Maybe I was approached by some of the people who we didn't even talk about from 1 or 2 years, but then we suddenly start talking about it. One example is I just got this award, and there are so many people I didn't even talk to them. They just came and congratulated me, and now we talking in messages, messenger. So I think people change their perception,
about
and this
you,
is
yeah.
human nature. They,
True.
you know, sometimes I feel it shouldn't be there, because I don't know, like sometimes I feel it's very different.
Okay, let's do something. I'm gonna ask something that is a little bit problematic, but let me just say it.
Go for it.
Did your perception about Sitafor people or Iowans change throughout time? Because mine did.
Yeah.
Mine did.
Actually, I will say yes.
In 6 months.
Oh yeah. I think yes, because when I came, people barely know me though. So how could I say that I know Cedar Falls and Iowan people? But yes, it does, because when I was traveling around USA, because you know the perk of being international is you're so curious and you spend money on other states that you
Yeah.
want to see other. So yeah, the perception changed. I will say the perception went more to the positive side of it, because I just want to know that okay, how the people are, and because I was so open about myself with them, it just, you know, there can be disagreements here, but it's like it's like more my perception went more to the positive side, and just yeah, you will meet some people like who are troublemakers, but that's okay.
Thank you. What are some of the things that you wished you could achieve but failed in your 4 years, and things that you hope students on campus who will be listening to us now, you hope they can work towards achieving them?
You know, for this, I'm gonna what you think that I
Something that you really wanted to achieve on a UNI campus level, but you failed to do.
Okay.
Okay, let me not limit it to failing. Something you really wanted to achieve and you did achieve, and something that you failed to achieve to make a social change on campus.
I think the achievement I had at my Muslim Student Association, I really want this organization to be well known in front of people, and letting them know what perspective of Islam is, and how Islam contribute in peace, and what Islam teaches us. So that's, I think, Alhamdulillah, I achieved it. The thing I didn't achieve it, Lamis, there are so many things then. So many. I want to be, just let's take it funny, I want to be involved, maybe like a president of a big organization. I was not able to do it, like such as like just let's say NISC. I will say that I was not very courage enough to run for the election, but I'm not sad about it.
Yeah.
Because but I will, then there is others. I want to get an A grade in one of my class, really want to have A grade in it, but I got a B grade in it. There is one class I really want to pass with D grade, but I failed with F grade in it. So you know, there is so many things.
Yeah, but like one on a social level on UNI. It's okay, take your time. You can think.
It's a little hard though. Because it depends on what your goals are, and I feel like the goals are...
Yeah, but my question is not like on an individual personal level. Yeah, like now that you shared about MSA, and that one was good and you already achieved that.
I wish I failed it. I wish people will know more about Pakistan. That
Okay.
I failed it because my focus was more went into MSA and Muslim perspective. I didn't put any work telling people that
About Pakistan.
I'm a Pakistani and Pakistan is this, Pakistan is this, Pakistan is doing this.
Yeah.
So on a social level, my contribution toward my own country was nothing. It was zero. I'm gonna say it bluntly.
Yeah.
It's zero.
Okay, so if we take it this way, if each individual is not really represented in their country, do you have any ideas on how can they represent their countries? Or I know there is this one from the International Student Office, the Taste of Culture or something, but it's only once a year, so that does not really count.
The time right now we are having in UNI is great. I will say UNI is doing a lot of, taking a lot of initiative in inclusion and diversity part. So I think it depends on the resources. The resources are available, even I'm gonna say that. So it depends on the individual now, what he or she wants to do.
Yeah.
If, for example, if I really want to do something about Pakistan, right now in our discussion, I think we can do it. But if I'm not putting effort in it, it means I don't want to do it. I don't have any interest in it. So I feel like that depend on the person, that what he or she wants to do. Otherwise, we have Pakistani Student Association, and that's like more of Pakistani students if they want to do within that organization. But for example, if another student from another country, that's a good initiative. Make an organization of that country, and generate events from that country organization, so people will start knowing more about it.
Yeah.
So that's one of the failures, because Pakistani Student Association exists here, but I was not involved in it.
Yeah, I heard you say something that UNI is great nowadays.
Yes.
You be here for 4 years and you notice the change. Like, do you think UNI has made a great change in diversity, inclusion, including other international students since you came in 2015 until today?
No.
Not much?
I will say not great change.
Okay.
It's
improving.
It's improving. I think that's a good word of saying it. No. I think
so
it's still working.
You think since you're leaving in 31 days, if I remember well, do you think that students need to put more effort?
I think students need to put more effort to show who they are, but even the administration and campus should also put a lot of effort to give them those platform and opportunities so they can improve themselves and show them who they are. It's a two-way street. It will be betterment for both of them, for campus and for students.
Yep. Thank you.
Last thing, I just want to mention it for the students. You said, I think I'm gonna say this, that it is okay to feel bad. It is okay sometimes that you're gonna be fail, and it is okay not to be motivated. You cannot be motivated every day.
True.
The days are long. You need to find things you can be motivated.
Yep.
So that's for the students, for the upcoming students.
Yeah, that was actually going to be my last question to wrap up the interview. Would you please share with us some pieces of advice for all minority groups and Americans on how to help one another adjust?
Always raise their voice.
Like each individual needs to raise their voice.
They have to tell them who they are, so that the people around them will listen to them, and the voice will echo.
True.
This is something I personally believe in. I think I did it. And obviously, because I also belong to a minority group, you sometimes fail, rejected, you sometimes face problems. But I think for each incident you will raise a voice, it will echo. It will tell other people that what's going on with you. And then people will start maybe talking within those groups, but then try to implement something which is bigger, better for you and better for the community you are living in. So I think raise your voice. Do something which you can do. It shouldn't be big.
Yep.
It can be anything. If I want to represent my country, Pakistan, the smallest thing I can do is create a badge and just put it on my bag. Every day people will see what the badge is. That's a very small example I'm giving you. Just do something which you think you can do. I think everyone have the potential. You come over a long way. Like that's the big achievement for all of us. We left our parents, we left our loved ones, we left our brothers, sisters, cousins, nieces. We came all the way to this country just to have education, to strive for education. now put a little bit effort to tell who you are.
True. Thank you.
So
Thank you
that's,
for
I
this.
think, all the advice for the
Yeah, and I
newcomers.
would add that you can't just keep thinking that you are rejected and marginalized without having had the courage to engage with people who you think are marginalizing you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for
Nader.
having me, Lamis.
Yeah, thank you. And keep spreading diversity in
Thank
So today with me, I have Faith, who is an international student here at UNI. Faith, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay, hi. My name is Faith. I am an international student from Nigeria. I am a senior here, double majoring in management information systems and supply chain management.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about your experience at UNI as an international student?
Well, I mean, my experiences here hasn't been as dramatic as it was maybe the first time I came to the United States, because everything was new and I wasn't really adaptive to the culture. But educational, speaking from an academic standpoint, my experience here has been great. It's a very different standard of education we have here compared to the education back home. So it's just more of a appreciative system, or difference. I appreciate the difference that it's been offered here and the opportunity to grow. It's just you get faced with a lot of challenges while you go through being in a foreign environment, or being a minority in a predominantly white school, or challenges are kind of all around. But I would say that UNI is that kind of environment that you can work with what you have. Like, it's kind of, I don't know, you can maneuver things. It's not like things are set in place for you to work with. You can make changes. So that's kind of how things have kind of been. I don't know if I really answered the question the way you wanted it.
That answers the question.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
if that's your story and your truth,
Yeah.
then I think that's a good answer.
Yeah.
Have you faced any sort of discrimination here on campus, or any type of implicit bias that you've encountered at all with other people?
Well, whenever people ask that question, one always pops up, because that was like the most obvious and the most revealing to not just me but to also students. This happened in class. This was last semester, and I'm always sit on the front row regardless of whichever class it is. I always try to just sit in the front just because I can hear, and just because it's just a way of me being confident and being in that kind of environment. And so I think all the times that the professor asks a question, I always usually probably am the first person to have my hands up, but I'm always the last person to get selected to answer the question. And at first I thought maybe he couldn't see me or something weird, but I mean, I sit in the front row.
He couldn't see you? Right.
I sit in the front row, and you can't ignore that. And there is a thing that he does where he ignores an opinion that he doesn't like, and he doesn't like when students challenge him. And this happens in a college of business. I mean, it's not just one person, but that happened to me, and I didn't, at first I didn't want to take it as what it was, but when it happened more than one time, and when a student pointed that out, like, she's had her hands up the whole time, and she 9 out of 10 knows the answer, but he had to go through all this wrong, the wrong answers, or make other people answer before I get to answer the question. So that was pretty much the most obvious one. I couldn't tell what he was thinking, or if it was an unconscious bias, but I feel like it should be conscious enough for you to know that you're doing it. And the change should have happened, but I mean, it is what it is.
How did that make you feel to know that he was acting that way toward you?
I think it kind of fueled a fire in me. For me, I started to just speak. I didn't wait for him to choose me to speak. It got to the point where, I mean, he can't do anything. He can't say I can't speak. He can't kick me out of class. The worst he can say is, oh, you can't answer the question. But by the time he says it, I already answered the question. So I think it was
you can just not let me speak in class. So I stopped putting my hands up. I just say the answer right off the bat, even if other people knew the answer. And I kind of did it out of spite too. And, he knew that I was doing it, but there was nothing he could do about it. I just that was the way I reacted to it. I just didn't feel the need to talk to him on the side, because you're a professor. I'm sure you've had diverse students over the years that you've been teaching, and you should be able to handle things in a more professional standpoint. But I think he was just petty about the whole thing, and
Yeah.
I just ran with it.
That's what it seems like.
Yeah, he was just being that.
So you said another student actually called him out about it?
Like, they told me, they were like, they don't want to assume what they're assuming, but I was like, yeah, you're assuming right.
Was this a white student?
No, this was actually another college student of color. She was Hispanic. So,
Okay.
but she didn't, people don't answer questions in his class because he's kind of rude. So
Okay.
I'm just the type of person who participates in class as much as I can. But, that was just one setback. And I wouldn't let that affect my whole experience as a college student, because that's meant to happen. You meet situations like that. It's just how you pull through it.
Right.
And, I just did what I had to do. I'm a student. I paid for the class. I just felt like it was my right to be there, and he couldn't really shut me off if he wanted to.
Okay.
So, yeah.
What other types of challenges have you faced as a student of color and an international student being here at UNI?
Well, as an international student, it's usually hard to, I don't know. It's like when things are addressed, like let's say when things are addressed, it's more, they're trying to look at the UNI student or the majority of the student, like things are being addressed or some resources are being allocated. It goes to one for all, but it's not really a one for all type of environment. You have, me, I'm a black woman, but I'm also an international student. So, I'm in a different group where I can't just use what everybody else is using because it's not for everybody. It's like there needs to be that availability for, it's like I done.
Okay. So what other challenges have you faced as an international student here at UNI?
I feel like people, things are generalized in a lot of cases. So like maybe, they were going to allocate resources. I am not part of the majority of student. I am I'm a black woman, and I'm also an international student, and I believe that not everything gets to be applied to me either because of restrictions or just because I would need something else. So it's like you either have to work twice as hard to get the same opportunities. The opportunities are there for everybody, but you have to prove yourself that people are not using those unconscious biasness to say, she's a black woman, she's an international student. We might just have to move the opportunity to somebody who is more local and somebody who we know. So sometimes you have to perform twice as hard or twice as better as your counterpart, and I don't feel like I need to do that all the time. I shouldn't always have to constantly prove myself, even if it's already bestowed in me that I'm always having to try to prove myself, even if I don't want to. It's like something that just happened. It's like a guard that comes up. And so that's probably some of the challenges I would say, because just knowing that I'm an international student and I see a resource that I can take advantage of, I know it's not just going to come easy. I always have to work twice as hard for it.
That must be kind of exhausting.
Yeah, it gets exhausting at some point, but then it's like, we pay the most money, but then we also have to do the most work. It's never handed over to you, even if they want to, or even if they can, they probably wouldn't do it. Yeah.
Did you hear about the moving of the international student or the International Student Center and how the university was trying to do that?
I participated in it. I signed the petition. I, was part of some meetings that they had, and we came up with some ideas of why they shouldn't do it. At first, I felt like it was a slap in the face that, when they were thinking about moving.
Can you explain why?
Why they wanted to do
Yeah,
it
kind
in
of
the
the
beginning.
story so people know.
So they wanted to expand the admissions office. They wanted to expand admissions. And so to expand that, they would need more offices and, more space, I would say. And I think they were trying to expand down into the Mocker Union. And, one has to go because at this point, the Mocker Union is full. And so their go-to was they were going to move the International Scholars Office from here over to Bartlett. And Bartlett is, for professors, it's like professors' office. Students don't really hang out there. Some classes are offered there. And it takes away what Mocker Union is really about, the unity of, bringing everybody, having this common place that every student can hang out. And we just felt like you can't do that. We have the Center for Multicultural, and everything of diversity that the school has is located here. So it does not justify anything to take the International Scholars Office from where it is now, because that's where we want it to be. It's not like they gave us the option. So I felt like we should be able to say that's where we want it. It stays there. You can go find somewhere else, like do it or figure it out. And so I think that was just a fight for it, and we felt like you can't do that. Like, we can't give you this much of our resources for you to be able to do that. It's not like if we were on all full ride scholarships, then maybe we can say something. But we know the tangible resources that we give out every semester, and it's not like we have a choice on how to do it. We have to do that, and so we take on that because that was the agreement that we had. And so the way our resources is, we can't let you take it. So I think that was just what it was all about. And I was just disappointed that you would want to take the International's office, because it's a small group of people. If we were a huge number, let's say like 12,000, they wouldn't do that. But I feel like it was a smaller group and they had the chance to do that, and so they did. But it didn't happen. So.
What was the process in order to keep it where it is?
First, they had the petition, and we had to have meetings with different leadership to just explain to them why they should keep it. At first I was like, we shouldn't have to explain why you should keep it. I feel like if we say no, it's a no. You shouldn't do it. That's what it was. So I think that was all what the process was about. And we had the chance. I didn't really get to go to all the meetings, but there was a situation where they got the chance to talk with the president and the provost, and I think that's where everything just kind of came together. Because when the news was told, all the different groups, all the different international groups, like the International Student Promoters, which are the ambassadors, like the admissions ambassadors for international admissions, and then you also had the International Students Association. So those, which is basically all of us, just had to come together and sign the petition, have other students sign the petition. We just had to get people talking about it, like letting other students know that this is something that the university is trying to do. So when that happened, the petition was submitted, and then I think the reasoning had to come about, and then the final decision was made.
Okay.
So yeah.
How did it make you feel to know that the university didn't care enough to really consult with students before they decided we need to move this office? It needs to go somewhere else so that we can put an admissions office there.
Yeah, like I said in the beginning, it felt like a slap in the face, because I just feel like, why would you take it? I wish there was somebody who said, this is the reason why we want to do. We know the reason why they want to move, but why would you want to move the international admissions? Do you feel like we're like a variable expense that you can move around and change it however you want? So I feel like I don't want to be in that. I don't want to be an international student that leadership can make a decision like that. I feel like I should be able to stand on my ground, and when I say no, it means no. Yeah, and I think there were some students who were upset about the situation and felt like UNI wasn't represented enough, and they didn't feel like they should have like either their family members come here or promote the school as the way the university wants to be portrayed out there, because we are the voice of UNI outside of the United States. If we say UNI is not the college to go to, people will believe that UNI is not, because we are the ones who went there. So for them to not, to actually listen was a good signal to us, because it changed the whole perspective of things. Because now the university knows, because I think we had to actually tell them that this is what you're doing. you want international students in your school. So if you make a decision like this and your international students retaliate in a negative way, it will affect you negatively. You never know who are the people who want to come to school, and there are a lot of people who ask us questions about UNI and why they should come here, and we have to tell them why. So we don't want to put in that factor as one of the reasons they shouldn't. So
Okay.
yeah.
What could you and I do better to make the international students feel at home here?
I think, well, I would just say it's just the whole situation about inclusion. It should just, and when we talk about diversity and inclusion, I believe that, you can pause it. Well, so what's the question again? Yeah.
So what could you and I do better to make international students have this campus feel like home?
So I honestly feel like they need, the university needs to look at it as the way you talk about diversity and inclusion. They did the diversity part, but they missed out the inclusion part. So, and when you take out the inclusion part, diversity doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all. So I think rather than allow an unconscious biasness, because we let things that we don't know, we let external information fill it in. That's where unconscious biasness comes in. And I feel like if we're just treated like any other student, like with the resources, with the respect, with when they make decisions, you shouldn't just make decisions of the majority of our students. You have to put into factor every different student you have. I mean, it's not just limited to international. You have the Black student, the African students, you have the disabled students, you have the non-traditional students, you have people who associate with just different groups. I mean, LGBT, the Hispanics, and everybody. So I feel like they need to look at the diversity that's here and make sure that whenever they make decisions, they need to show us that we value that you're here. We value your opinion, we value your money, which obviously they do. We value your time here, and we value the input that you bring to our university. So I think they just need to go the extra mile of just doing it. I just feel like, it's not just on the responsibilities of the admissions, but also leadership. These are people that can reach out to those groups. These are people that can show that they're actively participating in the student life of those particular organizations. So, yeah, I think the big step on how the university can handle that situation is the part of inclusion into things.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you feel as if your white counterparts are doing that?
Like students?
Yeah,
like
students.
Classmates? Yeah, I feel like, also our generation does a good job with the way we include different people, like differences. We accept differences. It's very, very few, it's very little. It's hard to find those young people our age that are like, I don't like difference. I don't like Black people. I don't like, Latinx people. I don't like gays or lesbians or disabled people. There's very few people that do that. So as my classmates, I don't have trouble with that. I feel like that environment, we are doing a good job with accepting. And I'm also doing a good job accepting my white counterparts, because I'm always going to have to live knowing that they have a different opportunity than I do. And so I could take that in a negative way, or I could take it in a positive way. It still doesn't affect the way, it does not affect the way I treat my coworkers. It does not affect the way I treat my classmates. If I'm knowledgeable of things, I teach them. So I feel like we just need to take away that stigma of what previous generations have done, like leadership or the decisions that they've made, because we're the ones that are having to correct it. So, just me being here helps my, white counterparts know that there's difference. There's difference with knowledge, difference with people, and the world is diversifying, and you just got to keep up to speed. And, people are doing a good job keeping up to speed. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's helpful.
Yeah.
I know you obviously know about our current leadership in the president's office of the United States, President Trump.
Okay.
And some of the remarks that he's made about Africa recently, did you feel as if there was a shift in the climate with the statement that he made about Africa at all on campus, or did you not see any effects at all?
Well, you can't really see the effects. You just know that it's there.
You just feel
it's
it.
It's like you can feel it. Because if I can feel it within me, on myself, I feel like there's a lot of people who feel it too. The moment I go in public and, I don't know, in a big group and just introduce myself, because anytime I introduce myself, it's just a thing, I just say where I'm from. And I always just have that unconsciousness that just tells me that there's probably people in this group who associate that to me. And I mean, it's happened. He said it. He can't take it back. People can always go back and refer to it. And there's some people that it just won't change. I mean, there are people who there's students here who thought it was disrespectful. I mean, it was disrespectful. But then there's some people that just was like, it is what it is. He says what he wants to say. And sometimes you're just like, what? And then sometimes you just ignore it. So I feel like there's students who are either in one of those or one or the other. So I don't see the shift because nothing has happened to me that I can relate with that. But I feel like there's going to be an unconscious biasness that's attached to it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. This has been a really great interview. Is there anything else you would like to say about your experience as an international student and a student of color?
Well, how about you? How do you see me as, or how do you see other people? Because I'm sure you've met other international students and you've had association with them. Like, how have you seen them being a part of your community? Like, how has that changed the way you think or the way you approach things or just the way you view your society now?
Wow, that's a really great question. I feel as if there's kind of a divide between international students and students of color somehow. It was really great during Africa Night to see everyone come together and just really enjoy the culture all together.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's rare that happens, and I'm not sure why that's the case. I know that we both have different experiences, but there are areas where they overlap. So I'm not sure why there is a divide, but I would like to see a little bit more unity between the communities because we face a lot of the same struggles essentially, and I think that it would be helpful for us to come together and fight against the things that oppress us as a community.
Exactly. Yeah, like you said, there is overlap and there's differences, and I do like the fact that we all celebrate our differences. And as me being an African, I celebrate African culture all the time, and at the same time I also join and celebrate what it means to be African American, because I feel like there is overlap between the two cultures.
Oh, definitely.
And it's always good to see people fighting for what they believe in and want to get out of this stigma or this feeling of oppression, because no matter how the system wants to make things better, this has been happening for a very long time.
Very true.
And we grew up just knowing that just being a black student is just hard. And I knew that when I came to America, there was some things that I expected so it wouldn't surprise me, but there were some things that I did not see coming. I didn't have to think about some things before I made decisions or apply to things. I didn't have to think about that before, but just because I'm in this environment, I always have to think about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for taking the time to do this. I appreciate it.
Yep. Thank you.
So who are you on this campus?
I'm Dr. Ryan McGue. I'm a professor in communication studies and the director of the oral communication course.
Okay, and what experience do you have with international students on this campus?
Most recently, we started a special section of the oral communication course that's exclusively for international students for whom English isn't their first language. And so we're piloting that this semester. And so I've been the person that got to teach that first section.
That's amazing. So what was it like teaching oral communication course to only international students?
It's a different experience. I've taught sections of that are just traditional sections. I've taught sections that are just for first year students, for honor students. So I've had a lot of different varieties of this course, and it's certainly different teaching it for international students. There's things about communication and about how even how one participates in a classroom that are just different sorts of cultural norms. And obviously you're asking people to get up and give a series of speeches in what for some of them is their second, third, fourth language. And that's a pretty impressive thing to ask, but it's certainly, I think the bar is a little bit higher. It's a real challenge to say, get up in your third language and persuade the people in this room to engage in a certain action or things like that. So I think that there's a real challenge in terms of what we're asking them to do in that classroom.
So I didn't give this to you as a question beforehand, but as you're speaking about it, what was a different way that you took to approaching the framework of this course?
There've been a few things that we did differently. One, we partnered with the CIEP, the Culture and Intensive English Preparation area here, and so we worked with them, and we have a person from their area who comes over and just works with students, talks to them about grammar and just sort of basic English stuff, because there's actually a pretty wide variety of proficiencies in English within that classroom. And so for some people it's they're really comfortable with their English, and for others they were able to pass the exams, they're able to come here and study here, but to read a chapter of the book is really a lot more work. And so we tried to make a bunch of additional resources available to people in terms of doing extra rounds of edits that I do, extra rounds of edits that my partner in the CIEP does. So when a student's writing a speech, rather than you write the speech, you bring it to the workshop day and then you give it, now we're taking blocks of time in class to work with students and to check in along the way, creating little feedback loops where maybe they'll email some of this stuff to us, and so they can get feedback just along the way so that they know that they're on the right path, both in terms of helping them produce a good product, but also in terms of just helping them feel comfortable with a pretty demanding assignment.
So what challenges did you face or have you faced while teaching this course?
It's a great question. A few things. One that comes to mind is when you have people, I have people from, I want to say 12, maybe, 12 different countries this semester. And I want to say in that room, it's maybe 9 different countries. And there are different sorts of, there's a lot of different challenges that go into it. One, just that I'd never even thought of before. I have a few students from Saudi Arabia, and one of the women doesn't drive. And that's, I think only within the past 2 to 3 years have women been able to drive in Saudi Arabia. And so when they're working on their group presentation, I just tell them, historically I say, hey, just go find times that you can get together outside of class, like you're adults, you can figure it out. And it had never struck me before until she came up and said, I can't meet after class. Like I need my husband to drive me back to come to the meeting. And I realized that I hadn't even thought of some of these things, right? About, I just say, hey, y'all get together, and I trust that people will do it. But for this woman, she has to, she has a couple children. She's got to sort of figure out how to navigate some of those different sorts of challenges. And just group work in general has been different because people just have different sorts of sets of expectations around, how do you participate in a group? What is an okay way to interact with each other? How do you communicate? Even things like touch, right? Some students may come from a culture where you express that you like somebody by giving them hugs or touching them, right? And others from places where this guy cannot come give this woman a hug. That's that's not cool within the cultural context. And so that's been something that's just been a learning experience. And I've been really lucky to have these students are all really generous, and they recognize that we're trying to figure out how to operate this class together. And so they've been incredibly cool about it. Other things I will say for me is humor is something. I tend to use a lot of humor when I teach.
Yeah.
And it's hard to tell jokes to somebody in their third language, right? It's just, they'll just they'll write it down in their notes, and I'm like, oh, but I was joking, right? And, there's ways that just your basic teaching style changes just a little bit. when you realize that, like, yeah, it's hard to ask somebody to recognize irony in a third language. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
get that. And so, yeah, we've been trying to kind of adapt to those things. And so I've figured out, like, I have to be more explicit in my group instructions. I have to create more time in the class, or take time out of class to figure out where is a time that everybody can meet, where is a place that
Mm-hmm.
everybody feels comfortable meeting each other. There's just little details that in the past I maybe hadn't paid attention to and I kind of taken for granted. And I'm learning this semester, if I want to offer a good experience for all of these students, I need to pay attention to some of those little things that maybe I hadn't before.
So you kind of touched on the challenges that your students have faced. Can you think of any further challenges that on an individual basis they might have been challenged to overcome?
I mean, there's always, and this isn't unique to them, but there's
Mm-hmm.
always communication apprehension, right? Fear of getting up in front of that room. And I've got a couple people this semester that I know are really feeling that. And I do think that part of it's tied to the language, right? Part of it's tied to yeah, they have to get up and they don't trust their English and they don't
Mm-hmm.
want to kind of lose face in front of a room full of people, especially because many of these people, they've gotten to know each other and they like each other and they're, so they have good community in that way, but they also now care what that other person thinks.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's been a challenge I know some of them have been dealing with. And so my office hours have been really quite full this semester. Just people that want to come by and maybe run that speech before, or just want me to look at it in advance and make sure that if they say the things that are on that paper, that they're going to sound like they know what they're talking about, right? Yeah. And so just doing that extra labor of checking in with people and just kind of building them up through the process so that they can feel confident to get up, in a language that isn't their first language and really address their peers.
So, um, did you find like a sense of community forming within your classroom of all of these students from different backgrounds?
Yeah, I mean, I actually think that that's something that's really been good about this class, honestly, is these are a lot of students that may or may not have had a ton of interaction otherwise, right? But they're dealing, even if they're from very different countries, they're dealing with some of the same challenges and some of the same just adjustments of being in a new place. Maybe you didn't know anybody before. Again, trying to read all of your work and all of your different classes in your second or third language. It probably takes longer for studying, things like that. And so this has created a space where they get to spend time a couple times a week with people who are dealing with some of those same challenges, where they work on some of these things together. I know some of them even just practice their English together now, right? And so, I mean, it's just creating a space where these folks can be together, where these students can deal with some of the challenges of just traveling across the world to go study. And I know, I see they like leave together in groups now after class, and so you kind of see that like they've created some of those bonds, some of those friendships that I think probably, not only make being in college, I'm sure it helps them study, I'm sure it helps them with their English, but it also helps them feel a little bit more at home to just have some friends when they go to their classes.
Of course. So, the community that they formed within your classroom, how do you think that intersects with the communities that we have at UNI?
That's a good question. I mean, I guess it depends on the different communities, right? To some extent. I mean, I think, again, many of them have gone through the CIEP program, right? And that's a much bigger program than just the number of people that are in just the number of people that are in my class. And so I do think that a lot of these students kind of create these bonds, create these friendships, but then they're going to these different CIEP events or the other international student events here, and they know more people. They bring their friends with them, right? And so A, they're more likely to go to some of these events. B, they're more likely, because they have these friends, to bring them there. And so I think that it helps maybe some of these international students who otherwise might have just gone back to their dorm and just kind of hung out to come and be a more active part of the campus, because it's just a lot easier to go do that with a couple of friends than it is, to have the courage to go by yourself to show up to an event. And I hear them talking, or I'll talk to them after class. And I know that, they'll go in groups to some of the things on campus and maybe interact with members of campus or the broader campus community in ways that they otherwise might not have.
What advice do you have for other faculty members who are teaching international students perhaps not on that whole group level, a sole class dedicated towards international students, but international students that are just in some of their classes, like a singular, like two different international students in a class full of people from the US?
A couple of things. One, this is the lesson that I learned kind of the hard way, is that oftentimes we have kind of subtle assumptions about how students interact with other students, how they interact with course materials, how they participate in class, that are clearly based in kind of experiences with American native English speaking students. And when you push on some of those assumptions, they don't hold up all that well for everybody, right?
Yeah.
And so to not just assume that you can give the exact same assignment, that you can give the exact same lecture, run the exact same discussion, and to create, not just to listen, but to create spaces where those students feel like they can communicate with you. And that's something that I've noticed really substantially throughout this class, is that students from different cultural backgrounds have very different comfort levels coming up and expressing to me if they need something. And they might all need it, but some cultures sort of condition them to come up and go ask and say, hey, this is the thing that I need. And in other cultures, the professor's the authority figure, and so you don't, if you need something else, you just hope that maybe they give it to you, and you don't necessarily come up and say, hey, this is what I need. And so something that I've been trying to do is I've actually been trying to let my class go just 3-4 minutes earlier than I normally would. And I just sit there and I just talk with people afterwards. And I just try to create these spaces. And if I have students, particularly those students that I know are going to be more reserved, either due to their personalities or their cultural backgrounds, and just use those moments to check in. Well, how's this assignment going? Have you picked a topic yet? How are you finding research? Things like that. And just to create a space where, like, they feel comfortable, they know I'm invested in them, but we've actually created little spaces where, like, I'm going to ask them some of those questions rather than counting on them to do what I would do, which is like charge up to the professor and be like, here's the thing I need to know about. And so, yeah, creating those spaces where they can talk and can listen, I think, is invaluable.
Of course. Well, thank you so much for your time, Dr. McHugh.
Absolutely.
Do you have anything that you'd like to add to this conversation?
I don't think so. Now I'll have to think about it. Yeah, no, that's good.
Well, I appreciate it so much.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.